Oh my God. So I love how like this StreamYard app asks me if I'm ready to go live. And I think that it actually should have like a safety feature of like, are you sure? Because, I just was like, okay, I'll go live. And then I realized, oh, there's a black screen. This doesn't look right. And then I just realized I had not put my face on the screen. So yeah, that's interesting. Anyway, hello everyone who is out there watching this right now. So this is Stories Live, and this episode does have a theme. Again, it's a very general theme, but the theme is achievements because exactly a year ago, well, lots of things happened exactly a year ago. But we're not going to talk about one of those things because everybody knows about it already. But as far as like the most important thing as far as the show is concerned is that is when we started Stories Live, was in March of 2020. And we had tons of technical difficulties. And then, we decided but it was still fun. So we did it again and had a few more technical difficulties, but, still were able to have a show and, have gone on to have smoother and smoother shows ever since. And we're still here. So yay. So let's see. Tonight is probably going to be a little shorter than normal. And that's okay because we have run long a few times. So can get a little bit of a break there. And, maybe start celebrating St. Patrick's Day if you're so inclined. I shared with Steve Anderson, who is totally scandalized now that I am not wearing green anywhere. So there's that, and you can't pinch me. So, anyway, tonight we have Steve Anderson, KB Jensen. We also have Richard Friesan, who's here. Tom Broderick, I'm not sure where he is. He might show up, he might not. But if he came just for that, I apologize in advance if he doesn't show up, but I'm sure we can come up with something. So anyway, let's see. I guess I should probably talk a little bit about, what's been on my mind lately. I don't think really much other than pandemic fatigue. I think that just I'm sort of over having to, worry about life or death situations, related to hand washing, etc. But at the same time, the introvert in me is kind of like, I don't really want this time of social isolation to, being normal to go away. I mean, it's actually been sort of nice hiding from people. So maybe it's just the trauma of people in high school calling me bookworm because I was reading instead of going and flirting with boys. And now here I am today, tricked out like an 80s prostitute. Anyway, yeah, that's my bold thinking for the day. So I'm going to bring Steve on here. Hello, Steve. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I am weird as usual. So
You'd be disappointed if you weren't.
right, I mean, this is what people come for, right? And it's going to be an interesting show too, because I just realized that we are kind of doing a throwback to the old times because we're simulcasting on Facebook and YouTube. So we'll see if Facebook breaks. I'm trying to be optimistic. It will probably break because it's Facebook.
Yes.
Anyway, what do you have for us tonight, Steve?
Okay. Tonight I have episode 2 of the If the Walls stories.
Nice.
And in good fashion, you don't have to have read or heard episode 1 for this to make sense. I think it will all come together. But okay. It is a continuation of the the story and the characters that were in the first story.
All right. Awesome. Well, I will let you take it away. Yeah, if the walls, I guess, could talk is kind of like the way
Yes.
you would finish this
Yeah. The main
sentence.
character he can hear what the walls have to say. So it's this
Yeah.
wall.
Now, do you remember which episode you read that on originally?
That was January, so it was just a couple of months ago.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So, for anybody who, decides they have to catch up on the whole thing, that is
Yes.
the episode to see. Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
that was just 2 months ago. So, and I think I was up first on that one too. So you should be able to find it pretty easily.
All right. Well, I will let you take it away before my ring light collapses on me completely. So go for it.
Okay. So this is If These Walls, episode 2, subtitled The Placer Street Protection League. Detective Emily Lindell was waiting for me in the parking lot. I recognized her car, a black CUV designed to be anonymous. It would have worked better without the cheap steel wheels, 6 antennas, and extra lights that reflected the afternoon sun from behind the grill. She was sitting in it, engine idling, windows rolled up against the heat. Water dripped steadily from the AC. The size of the puddle said she'd been there a while. I had a Suburban full of students fresh from a dig at the Mastodon State Historic Site. No, fresh is the wrong word to describe any of us. Working outdoors on a humid July day in St. Louis doesn't keep anything about a person fresh. But the field geology class I teach each summer is a filter class, designed to find out who is serious about making geology their life's work, and who would be happier punching a 9 to 5 clock in a glass tower full of cubicles. The girl with the zinc on her nose had promise. A couple of the others might make it if they learned to stop trying to impress the girl with the zinc on her nose. I'd know more on Friday. Thunderstorms were supposed to roll through, and nothing sorts out a person's priorities like doing geology in the mud. I said goodbye to my students, shouldered my pack over my sweaty shirt, and walked over to Emily's car. She lowered the window, and I smiled, because seeing Emily always makes me smile. I thought the plan was to meet at Maggie O'Brien's at 7, I told her. I need time to clean up. She didn't smile, and my dream of Maggie's fish and chips and a pint of Guinness faded. We have something else to do first. Get in. I have a car. I'll follow you. Get in, Johnny. Don't worry. I'll bring you back when I'm done with you. The corners of Emily's mouth turned up. It didn't make me feel any better. Yeah, that's what I'm afraid of. I walked around the passenger door and got in. Emily pulled into traffic with a sharp chirp as the front wheel slipped on hot asphalt. There's a girl that's been missing 8 days. I need you to do that weird shit you do. See what's happened to her. Weird shit. If these walls could talk is more than a cute saying. Walls do talk to me. Emily thinks I was born with it, like a genetic curse inherited from my father. Let her think that. Let her be unaware of the years of hard practice, praying to hear something, anything, so my dad would be proud of me. Let her remain ignorant of the trauma inflicted when I first heard a wall whisper my name, and the cold certainty settled into my stomach that walls are alive. My dad helped Emily's partner back in the day. When Dad died, I stepped in. Emily's partner retired a few years later, and she inherited his caseload. And me. Missing? I asked her. Chances are against anything happening where I can see it. Emily's knuckles became white as she gripped the wheel tighter. She was in her closet when it happened. I moved a vent to blow cold air on my face. Did you say missing or killed? That's what I want you to tell me. There's blood, but no body. We have a suspect, but no proof. I don't do closets. I especially don't do closets where someone died. She was 12. That just makes it worse. The way the walls remember, the recordings in the plaster and paint and drywall, the small space magnifies them. It's overwhelming. That was a lie about the way walls remember, but the overwhelming part is true. Losing myself inside those voices was not how I wanted to die. Emily spoke very slowly and clearly. She was 12. I scrunched my eyes tight, already regretting what I was about to say. No corpse? No corpse. How much blood? Very little. Partial handprint. Okay, I'll look at it with you. No promises. I kept my eyes closed, not wanting to see the satisfied curl of her lips. Emily unlocked the front door using a key from the lockbox hanging from the handle. Theo Jacobson went missing Tuesday of last week. Father ran off 5 years ago, whereabouts unknown. Mother is Heather. She works as an ER nurse, 12-hour shifts, sometimes 6 days a week, mostly evenings and nights. I followed Emily up into the house and up the stairs. Little Theo had a lot of alone time. Does she have friends? Not many. A boy her age next door, Caleb. He shook the whole time I questioned him, freaked out. He's the one that pointed the finger at the guy across the street, Oscar Hemmerling, 58, retired machinist, major creep, computer full of pictures of the neighborhood kids. A rag under his workbench had Theo's blood on it. So why do you need me? No corpse. The blood was barely enough to test, and his lawyer's disputing the results. Taking photos of your neighborhood isn't illegal. He'll walk if I can't find a reason to hold him. Emily slid the closet door open. Find out what happened to her, Johnny. Someone had taken everything out of the closet. No clothes, no shoes, nothing. I sat in the middle of the emptiness and looked at the only thing that remained. There was a small handprint on the wall, a thumb, forefinger, part of a palm. The story was there, the walls already calling to me before I even touched them. A snickering sound echoed between the walls up to the ceiling inside my skull. How would I let myself get talked into this? Emily, you pull me out after a few minutes, understand? Tase me if you have to. Sure, Johnny. I'll be right here. She settled herself on the floor. Do it. I put my hand on the wall. Theo and Caleb were there, sitting cross-legged in a closet full of clothes, stuffed animals, and boxes of who knows what. Theo studied an image on Caleb's phone. That's from last night? He was over here for dinner last night. She gave an exaggerated shudder. My mom says she feels sorry for him, living all alone. He's even creepier up close. Have you heard his voice? Yuck. She leaned closer to the screen. What's he carrying? Caleb shrugged. It looked like a body in a sack. That was at 11 o'clock last night. I was in his backyard, so I don't know where he got it. We have to call the police. They won't listen to me, not after last week when I thought Mrs. Jensen had killed her dog to make a fur hat. And you, what was it that the officer said to you when you accused your teacher of being a Santeria high priestess? Theo scrunched her eyes closed and her nose wrinkled as she winced. I know, but this isn't about missing chickens. What good is the Placer Street Protection League we created if the police won't believe us anymore? You were out there all night? Until 2:38 this morning. Theo touched Caleb's hand. You should have called me. I think I was still up reading. I didn't want to, Theo pulled her hand away and sat up straight. Wait, I've got an idea. The cops won't do anything without evidence. Let's give them some. Okay, like what? You want to go over there? Break in and stuff? Yes, but we need something first. She opened one of the boxes and removed a sewing kit and a piece of cloth. Don't try to stop me. What are you doing? Theo whimpered as she cut into her palm with the orange-handled scissors. She smeared the blood onto her fingers and thumb and pressed her hand against the closet wall. Cloth, she held her hand out to Caleb. Quick! She clutched the bald rag tight in her fist and rocked back and forth from the pain. That hurt a whole lot more than I thought it would. When people do it in a movie, it doesn't look so bad. But it is. That was really brave. Caleb took her hand, kissed the back of it. What now? How do I get into his house? I had to feed his stupid cat every day before he retired. I still have the code for his garage. Take this. Theo handed him the bloody rag. Put it somewhere he won't find it, but the cops will. I need to hide at your house for a few days until they find all the creepy stuff he must be doing over there. Theo, your mom's going to think you're dead. Yeah, like she cares. Just don't get... The memory shattered. Pieces drifted back into the walls, and the walls reached out to hold me. I wanted to stay. They had so many more stories to tell. I could stay there forever, listening. Just listening forever. Emily dragged me across the floor, her hands under my shoulders. She yelled my name with each tug. Johnny! Wake up, Johnny! I laughed at the situation, at the worry in her eyes, and the way her face was red. at myself for getting trapped in a closet memory. I'm awake, I told her. I'm back. It's okay. She dropped me and slumped to the floor. Okay, tell me what's so damn funny. I crawled to her, kissed her on the mouth before answering. Theo's not dead. She and Caleb set you up. Emily didn't think it was funny. We walked next door to Caleb's house while I told her what I'd seen. It was kind of cute, I told her. I like Theo and Caleb. Most kids their age, left alone for the summer, they'd get into all kinds of trouble. We stopped on the front porch and Emily glared at me. Not cute, not funny, and they are in trouble. They messed with a man's life and burned the department's overtime budget. I've lived this case 24/7 all week. I slept at my desk. She pounded on the door. There's a doorbell right here. I reached for the glowing button and she slapped my hand away. I don't want to ring the bell. I want to pound. She knocked again, harder, shaking the door in its frame. Caleb appeared a moment later, face pale, eyes big, but he stood up straight, giving it his best bluff. Hi, Detective Lindell, right? My folks aren't home. I'm not supposed to. She pushed past him into the foyer. Go get her. Caleb gave it one last try. My mom's at work. I can call her if Theo. Go get Theo. I know she's hiding here with you. It's over. Don't make it worse. The coat closet opened behind us and Theo stepped out. She was wearing a too big t-shirt and sweatpants cuffed to keep them from dragging on the floor. It's not his fault. I talked him into it. Caleb went to stand beside her. That's not true. It was my idea. She didn't want to do it. I made her. I turned my back to them and whispered to Emily, can they be any cuter? She was too irritated to lower her voice. Yes, they're adorable. She pulled her phone from her pocket. Theo, I'm calling your mom. Do you know what you put her through? Theo crossed her arms. Did she pretend cry for you? She does that so people will feel sorry for her. Emily narrowed her eyes, a look I'd learned not to ignore, but the anger in her voice had been replaced with something softer, warmer. Not everyone grieves in the same way. Caleb's parents cried for me. I heard them when I was hiding in the guest bedroom the first night. It was real. Please, don't call my mom. Emily slid her phone back into her pocket. All right. Why not? Theo glanced at Caleb, and he answered for her. Theo's mom had Mr. Hemmerling over the first night Theo went missing. She was mad at him at first. She thought he'd done something to Theo. He told her that he didn't know anything about it, and I guess she believed him because after that, they went upstairs and Mr. Hemmerling didn't leave until morning. Caleb made a face as if he might throw up. I could hear them some of the time. And how exactly did you hear them? I was outside on their deck all night, watching. I have this thing that attaches to windows or walls, and you can hear what happens on the other side. Theo gave him a shy grin, a look in her eyes that I've received a few times from Emily when I've done something she considers worthy. Lucky kid. It's really cool, Theo told us. You wouldn't believe some of the things we've heard. Emily sighed and shook her head. Okay, I'm going to pretend that you didn't tell me about spying on your neighbors. I interrogated Oscar Hemmerling extensively. He's unusual, I'll give you that. And his photographic interests aren't quite right. I promise I'll keep an eye on him, but I can't hold him. Theo shivered. He's a creep. He sits on his porch and takes pictures of me with a big long lens every time I pass his house. We searched his house. He's not doing anything illegal. Now that we found you alive, we'll give him a big public apology and hope he doesn't sue the department. Oscar Hemmerling will be back home tonight, and that's the end of it. Theo stared at her feet, and there was the smallest quaver when she spoke. You must have missed something. Have you both looked? He probably has a secret room in the basement. Did you check for that? He goes somewhere. We can't hear him. Everything was checked. There was nothing. Theo turned to me, sensing an easier mark. Did you look? I gave her a sympathetic smile. No, I didn't. I'm not with the police. You're not a detective? No, but I am the one that figured out you were still alive. I do consulting once in a while for Detective Lindell. Consulting? Consulting detective? Theo's mouth remained open a moment after she said it. Caleb, you told me those weren't real, just a made-up story thing. She pointed at me. And he's dressed perfect for it, all scruffy and stuff. Emily snorted the way she does when she's trying not to laugh. This is John Sexton. He helps me sometimes, that's all. He is not a consulting detective. Theo ignored her and took my hand. The bandage on her palm was rough against my skin. You have to go look, please. Something bad will happen to me if he comes back. I just know it. Emily threw me under the bus. I still have access, Johnny, if you want to go over there. Into his basement? I don't do basements. The wooden stairs leading down creaked with each step I took. I reached the bottom and looked around. Can we turn on some lights? The lights are on, Johnny. I nodded, took a deep breath. Workbench, a double-wide storage cabinet, doors open, tools, a monitor on the desk where his computer used to be before the police took it, an old couch and unpainted drywall stained with mold. I could see all of it, but it felt dark, as if everything in the basement absorbed the glow from the fluorescent tubes and not a ray of light was reflected or could escape. Emily was next to me, a welcome presence in the darkness. You okay, Johnny? No, I'm not okay. This is a bad place. The stories these walls have, they should never be told. They should never have happened. You're already seeing it? You haven't touched them yet. I tried to give Emily a brave smile. Why don't you just keep Hemmerling locked up? Lose his file or something. Keep him behind bars forever. I won't tell. She touched my hand. Get it done, Johnny. Find something to keep him off the street. 5 minutes, I told her. Any more than that, and I won't make it back. I sat at his desk and put my hand against the wall. The room brightened, and I wished it hadn't. Hemmerling walked down the stairs, leaning heavily on the handrail to maintain balance under the weight of the bag draped over his shoulder. A body bag. He set it gently on the couch and unzipped it. The boy inside looked about 15, dressed in a hospital gown. He was pale, weak, but alive based on the way he rolled his head from side to side. Hemmerling leaned over the boy and breathed in as though smelling him. Ah, awake. Do you know where you are? The boy opened his eyes. Party? I drank something and then... A hospital? He patted the boy's cheek. Yes, a hospital. You died there. The boy struggled to sit up, but he was restrained in some way. I died? You mean like you had to restart my heart? Hemmerling placed a meaty, short-fingered hand on the boy's chest and pressed down. No one restarted your heart. You are officially dead. My friend filled out your death certificate. They put you in a bag, and now here you are with me. I feel your heart. It's pounding. Faster. Yes, we'll make it go much faster. Hemmerling giggled, and the walls giggled with him. The sound of it filled my head. It was as if I was the boy, looking up into Hemmerling's pudgy face and watery, pale eyes. The boy and I said the words together. My friends, they know I went to the hospital. They'll look for me. Hemmerling leaned forward until our noses nearly touched. No one will miss you. You ran away from home a year ago, a year in and out of homeless shelters and sleeping on people's couches. Now you're on my couch. The boy whimpered, fearing death. He would have screamed had he known what was coming. Hemmerling moved to the storage cabinet, released the shelves so they swung away, and opened the door hidden inside. My mortgage payment is due next week. 30 years I worked for Allied Medical as a master machinist, and the pension they gave me won't even cover my mortgage. I learned a few things about the machines we built, though. That comes in handy. He giggled again, and the tremors ran through the boy's body and into mine. Here, listen to this. Hemmerling took a sheet of paper and read from it. This is the schedule of fees from Gateway Biological. Elbows, $200 each. Whole arm with shoulder, $600. Spine for $1,900. He placed the paper back on the shelf. I don't know what they do with elbows, but you have 2 of them. That's $400 right there. He pushed on the couch, and it rolled toward the hidden doorway. Shall we begin? I'm still improving my sequence for harvesting parts. I updated it after last time when the girl died halfway through. We'll see if you can last longer than she did. The boy screamed, for help, for mercy, but only the walls heard him, and the walls poured all of his fear into me when the couch bumped over the threshold into the hidden room. I couldn't see them, but the walls remembered the sounds they made, the high whine of Hemmerling's tools, the crunching and tearing as the boy's body came apart. And the boy screamed. For a long eternity of minutes, that was all I could hear. until the screams finally faded and stopped. Emily didn't use the taser on me. Instead, it was the pain as my back scraped against each step as she dragged me up the stairs. She kissed me when we reached the top and gave me that look that said I was worthy of her kisses. We sat together in her car for a long time while I told her everything, and then she left me to see the room hidden behind the storage cabinet. She must have called her boss while she was down there because 2 more unmarked cars arrived before she came back. Hey, Johnny, I'm going to go talk to Theo and Caleb. They were on the porch with one of those parabolic listening devices until Caleb's folks came home a little bit ago. You don't need to come with me. Yes, I do. I destroyed Theo's life today. I want to try to explain it to her. You saved her life today. I shook my head. You've arrested her mother? Yes, they picked her up at the hospital. Benson says she confessed everything, blamed Hemmerling for forcing her into it, and said she needed the money for Theo. She cried the whole time, not that tears will save her. Pretend crying, that's what Theo said she does. Poor Theo. Before all this, she thought her life sucked because her mother didn't care about her. But she woke every morning in her own home. There was food in the pantry, she had clean clothes and friends in the neighborhood. Where will she wake up tomorrow, Emily? In a Child Protective Services group home? You're looking at this all wrong. The courts decide that, not us. Maybe Caleb's parents will foster her. We stopped the bad guys today, Johnny. You should be feeling damn good about it. Come on, we'll talk to the kids and the parents, and then I'll buy you dinner and a beer at Maggie's. It'll make you feel better. I got out of the car. I'm not hungry, I told her. Not after what I saw, what I heard. I looked into the warm, brown eyes and said what I had to say. You asked me to go into Theo's closet and then into a basement where the walls almost took me. I knew better, but you asked me, and I'd do it again for you. She took my hand. I'm sorry, Johnny. It was important this time. You know that better than any of us. You don't understand. I can't refuse you. And if I get lost in there, I'm not coming back. This was the filter case. The one that showed me that pulling memories of death and pain out of the walls is not how I want to live my life, and it's not how I want to die. I can't help you anymore. I'm done. I'll talk to Theo. I owe her that much. Then I'm going home. Don't call me again, Detective Lindell. Not ever. That's the end.
Hey. Yay! So good job, Steve.
Okay.
So are you going to be continuing to work on this, or is this like?
I think so. I think it's probably worth a couple of more stories at least. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, seems to be working out for you.
I mean, the 2 main characters got together in the first story. They're split apart at the end of the second one, so we got to find a way maybe to get them back together.
Awesome. Okay. Well, let's see. I guess I will let. Deb Courtney is now saying that this sounds familiar, and I'm like, yeah, wasn't that line like people grieve in different ways? Like, wasn't that like a prompt that we had for Right Drunk, Get It Sober?
Yeah, probably.
Okay.
The original story started as a story prompt from Right Drunk, Get It Sober.
Okay. Cool. All right. Well, yes, it did sound familiar to me, so I was wondering about that. Anyway, I will let you go, and I'm going to bring KB on here. All right. So, hi, KB. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. That was a very chilling and awesome story, Stephen, too. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a good guy and a good writer as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, and you are new on here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you want to tell us a little something about yourself?
Yeah, sure. I'm the author of Painting with Fire, a crime novel, and A Storm of Stories, which veers more literary, handles love, craziness, and impossibility. So I've also got a 3rd book in the works, which is more short stories, kind of a blending of different genres, a little bit across the board. So I'm all over the place, a bit of a genre whore. So
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, we like our women in horror. At
Yeah.
least I do. I like all horror anyway. It
Yeah.
relaxes me, which a lot of people like, when I say that, they're like, that's warped. And I'm like, I don't know. I like what I like. All right. Well, anyway, I will let you go forth and read your story. I'm going to get
Okay.
myself out of the frame. I almost took you out of the frame, which would have been counterproductive. So let's see.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I actually have two things to read today. I brought a little poem to start out with, and then I've got a zombie story for us today. So my poem is about achievements in the COVID era, because I thought it was fun with the achievements theme. So achievements in the COVID era. In pandemic times, an achievement is getting a negative result on a COVID test. Not catching anything is an achievement, not getting close to people. An achievement is bathing, even though no one cares if you do. Putting on sweatpants, being on time to a Zoom meeting, exercising to a streamed workout in a windowless basement, buying a pair of dumbbells online after looking for hours when everything is out of stock, reading enough news to stay informed, but not so much news that you can't sleep, not so much that you cry in the shower. Giving up Facebook is an achievement. Not eating ice cream every day is an achievement. Fighting off depression is an achievement. Calling your therapist and moving up your appointment is an achievement. Not drinking every day is an achievement. Getting a vaccination needle in the arm, walking out of the clinic in a daze, waiting patiently a month and a half for immunity is an achievement. Survival itself is an achievement. An uncurling of the fingers, an unclenching of the fists after a long, drawn-out fight, slowly letting go of constant anxiety that has kept you safe, is an achievement. An achievement that's actually hard to imagine, but possible eventually. Okay, on to the fun stuff. Zombies. So, because like I said, survival itself is an achievement, right? And trying to survive is definitely a big one. This one's called Arnav and the Apocalypse. I never expected to love Arnav, and I certainly didn't intend to have his baby at a time like this. When the journalists first told us the zombie apocalypse had begun, I didn't believe them. No one did. The president came on TV and said it was just like the flu and it would go away in the first few months. But the second wave of the undead was worse than the first. It was a day to remember, actually impossible to forget. My neighbor Amelia had become infected. She waved at me as I was mowing my lawn with a manual push mower. Her arm was purple and bloated. I wasn't worried that she was going to jump the fence, and not just because of the barbed wire that Arnav had wound up on the top. She wasn't an agile woman. Amelia was large in life and large in undeath. Her rotting ligaments never could have made the leap to eat my brains. Arnav ran out to me in his pajamas and his flip-flops. Silly, honey, he said. You shouldn't be mowing the lawn in your condition. I need the exercise. And what condition? I asked blankly. Haven't you noticed? I'm pretty sure you're pregnant, he said. Arnav had noticed the nausea and the extra restlessness before I did. He noticed the strange cravings. I had wanted Korean food so badly the night before. I frowned. Maybe this is why he had risked his life to get me kimchi and confirmed just how bad it had gotten downtown. He'd wandered through the hordes of zombies in his trusty Honda Civic to pick up provisions at the Korean grocery store and kimchi because I hadn't been able to stop talking about how much I missed kimchi. I never deserved Arnav. We'd been roommates for 7 months, and he was a good guy. It was quite convenient we fell in love because it wasn't time to be on Tinder. You never knew if your date would be infected or not, or if his arm would fall off, or, more importantly, his member. Arnav was thoughtful and intelligent, beautiful too, tall, slender, intense, with dark eyes and golden skin. An overachiever, he could name all the capitals. You could quiz him on them, and he took pride in that. What's the capital of Liberia? I asked him once in bed, and he'd shouted back, Monrovia, with a little too much enthusiasm that night. You're such a dork, I said, lying next to him in bed, my face against his chest. He thwacked me with a pillow. I laughed, and he climbed on top of me. My love for him snuck up on me. I never expected it. At first, we'd been worried about religious differences, but he prayed to his gods arranged on the kitchen counter with little brass oil lamps, and I prayed to my God on my knees by the bed, and it didn't seem to matter because the world was ending anyway. We were hedging our bets. Arnav was a man of many hyphens and nationalities sandwiched together, Canadian, Indian, American. Sometimes we talked about fleeing to another country as refugees, but we weren't sure it was better anywhere else. He was handy during an apocalypse. Arnav had stocked up on bags of rice and dolls in the beginning and seeds to grow in our garden. His paranoia paid off. His chili pepper plant was his pride and joy and was high in vitamin C. We're going to be okay, he said. We can ride through this for years. At first, I hadn't wanted to complicate things, but Arnav promised me he wouldn't let our romantic status destroy our ability to be good to one another. I will always respect you. I will always be good to you. I'll never hurt you, I promise. The words sounded almost like wedding vows. They sent a chill through me. It's a tough time to make promises, I had said, but thank you. Inwardly, I cringed at not promising anything back, but even though it was early days, the apocalypse had already taught me not to make promises I couldn't keep, so I didn't make any promises. I didn't make any. Sometimes I thought Arnav knew how to read my mind. I'd shiver and he'd bring me a sweater. I'd sigh and he'd give me a hug. He read the news every day on his phone, spending hours doom scrolling. Most of the journalists were dead by then, and there were just rumors on Twitter and random videos, many made up by old Russian bots and conspiracy theorists. No one wanted to believe it was the end of the world, but it was. I'll read it for you, he said. It affects you too much. It's strange the things you learn in an apocalypse. I've learned to pay attention only when needed. I've learned how to roast squirrel and rabbit and crochet and sew. I've learned how to grow vegetables and barter, how to spot an infected person by the way they smell. I've learned to live without tea, probably better for the baby anyway. And Arnav who could read my mind like he could read the news. Arnav who knew I had his baby growing within me before I did. Arnav who had those beautiful brown eyes. I'm telling you, I loved him, and I tried not to notice the scent over the smell of the grass because it was not just the neighbor. That kimchi craving cost us. I knew when I got back in the house, something had to be done. Arnav knew too. Honey, I promised you I'd never hurt you, he said sweetly. You do what you need to do. He pulled out the gun from the kitchen cupboard and put it on the table with the box of bullets. You already know I didn't just pick up kimchi last night at the Korean grocery store, he said. It was bad out there. I didn't want to tell you everything last night. I knew you'd have a hard time sleeping, and I just couldn't find the words. I started to sob, and I couldn't speak through the shaking of my chest. Don't feel guilty, honey. Don't cry. You know we needed those provisions for the baby too. I'm sorry, sweet honey. He kissed me sweetly on the cheek, opened the box of bullets, and loaded the chamber of the gun. We've got a few decisions to make, he said, before the infection takes hold. Cognitive decline is one of the first symptoms, I said softly, more to myself than to him. Keep asking me my capitals, Arnav said. You'll know when I start slipping. I don't know the right answers anyway. I held back another sob, tried to stop the shaking of my body. Geography was never my strong suit in school. It's just not emphasized in the States. Our maps were so outdated. You'll know if I get it wrong, he said. I should probably shoot myself outside so it's less messy and you can just burn my body. My parents would be pleased with the cremation, and it's less of a risk that I'll rise. I couldn't stop the tears from rolling. Arnav, you can't shoot yourself. You'll go to hell, I said. Silly honey, he said. Your God will understand. Trust me, and I don't believe in your hell. I'll shoot you, I said, picking up the gun with trembling hands, just in case. But wouldn't that make you a murderer? Arnav raised an eyebrow at me. It's an act of self-defense, I said, even if I don't wait for you to become a monster. I don't want you to remember me that way. Arnav folded his arms. I'll always remember you as you, I said simply. Arnav, I said. Yes, he said. What's the capital of Madagascar? Antananarivo. The name rolled off his tongue impossibly. He smiled broadly. Is that right? I asked. Yes, he said. My goodness. I can't believe I'm going to have to raise a baby on my own in the middle of a zombie apocalypse. I'm sorry, he said. It's not your fault. Yeah, it is. Let's not talk about that now. We don't have a lot of time. I was thinking, maybe I should name our baby after you, I said, swallowing. I wanted to ponder whether the baby would look like Arnav or me. I wished I could call my parents with the news, but they didn't make it past the first wave. I didn't care that we weren't officially married at this point. I just wanted some semblance of joy. But the scent, that smell, the joy was stolen from us already. I wanted to throw up from the panic and the grief. Where did they get you? I asked. On my right thigh. He pulled down his pajama pants and showed me the gash. It was oozing yellow, green, purple pus already, a bad sign that made me queasy. Arnav swallowed, and I knew he was trying to be brave. We'd better make preparations, he said. Arnav, I don't know if I can raise a child alone, I said, the fear rising in my voice. Under these conditions. Honey, you've got a lot of food, and you've got firewood, you've got water, you've got plenty of bullets and excellent aim. Not exactly the items I thought I needed on a baby registry. What about diapers, a crib? A dresser drawer can be used as a bassinet. Promise me you'll give it a shot, he said. The whole survival thing, as long as you can. I know you'll figure it out. You're amazing. I can't believe you're leaving me here in this situation, I cried. I'm sorry I put you in this position alone. I messed up. He stepped back into his pajama pants, held me in his arms, and kissed my hair. I could smell the rot on him, mixed with his familiar scent. You've been the love of my life, I said. We were lucky to have this time together, Arnav said. I've been so lucky, he swallowed. What's the capital of Tanzania? He hesitated for a moment, his eyelids fluttering strangely, then said, Dodoma? Is that right? I asked. I wondered if my American education and lack of geographical knowledge would cost me my life or if I cared, but then again, I had to think of the baby now. A mix of excitement and dread filled my belly. I shouldn't want this baby, but it was all I had left. I did want him, her, whatever it was. Arnav walked back into the garage and carried some firewood out to the yard and came back for the shovel and gasoline. I followed. He started digging a hole. I watched the sweat drip down his forehead. The muscles twitch and tremor erratically. Seized the shovel awkwardly. He dug a hole, stopped, and starting as if forgetting where he was and what he was doing. His eyelids fluttered, revealing the whites of his eyes. I held the gun now. I should have grabbed a sweater. I was shaking and trembling. Was it the cold or the adrenaline? He was quiet now. I knew what I had to do. Arnav, I said. Yes, silly honey, he said slowly, pausing to wipe the sweat from his forehead. His beautiful brown eyes were back. What's the capital of Argentina? La Paz, he said quietly, looking far away. This time I didn't have to ask him if he was right or wrong, or whether I should pull the trigger. Arnav knew how to read me, and after all this time together, I knew how to read him. I didn't have to wait for him to drop the shovel and leap for me. I didn't wait for him to turn into something he never wanted to be. I aimed and I closed my eyes. I aimed and I closed my eyes so I wouldn't see, and he could have moved. Arnav could have flinched. He could have fled, but he didn't. He took the bullets because he loved me. 5 years have passed. Arnavi and I have picnics in the backyard on a blanket near where her father's cremains are buried. A mix of traditions, his and mine. Most of the houses around us have been looted and burned to the ground. Our bullets and seeds have come in handy. I have Arnav's old atlas in my lap, a prized possession I found in his things. I quiz my daughter about capitals. I've learned them too. It's a thread that connects her with the father she never met and with a world she's never known. I can almost hear Arnav when I do, and I know what he'd say. I can almost hear him whispering now. Silly honey, why learn the names of cities that no longer exist? It's a question Arnavi sometimes asks too. Thanks.
Thank you so much. That was awesome. And, zombies,
I know.
always the way to my heart. I guess they find the way to your heart pretty fast anyway, like after they get done with the brains.
Exactly.
So, all right, let's see. I will let you go ahead and chill out for a bit here. And we've got Tom. So you made it.
I made it. Yes.
Phew. Yeah, I
Sorry.
was afraid that you were a victim of the zombie apocalypse or something.
Or a victim of just mixing up dates.
Yeah, well, nobody knows what time or day it is, so that makes sense, you know.
What a great thing for the 1 year anniversary. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's like we don't know what's going on. We don't know where we are. We don't know what we're doing. All right. So, yeah, what have you got for us tonight?
I have a story that I would like to read that is, I wrote inspired by the pandemic, but not necessarily.
Okay.
So,
Okay. Cool beans.
hopefully there's a little bit of levity to it.
Well, you know, it's always optional, but
We
yeah,
do our
well,
best.
yes, absolutely. I will let you carry on.
All right. Thank you very much. Okay. The story I'm going to read is called Like Something Almost Being Said. To the golden canine that frequents the alley. Greetings. I hope you don't mind my writing and sending this to you. I happen to live in the apartment across the way from yours, and where my window is situated affords me a perfect view of your balcony and when the blinds aren't drawn into your living room. Recently, I've noticed from my perch a change in your family's usual routine, namely that the time you spend outside these days has decreased. Whereas before you might go out for a saunter 2 or 3 times a day, it now appears you're relegated to a small patch of grass beside the apartment building doorway, which I also have the angle to see. You may chalk it up to either concern or curiosity, but I felt the need to initiate a correspondence with you, especially as, given the free time I have, my thoughts do tend to spiral into quite a few versions of possible futures. I don't hesitate to admit that a reply from you would be of great comfort to me. Again, I hope you don't mind my concern, and if you do, please feel no guilt, for already I recognize the boundaries over which I have tiptoed. I await your reply with earnest anticipation. Yours, the plastic bonsai tree in apartment 232. Golly, you use lots of big words, Mr. Tree. I'm not one of those smart breeds, so if that's okay with you, I am happy to be friends. I looked out of the window after receiving your letter, and I could see you in your window across the alley. I barked a few times to say hi. Did you hear me? I don't know why we're not going on walks anymore. My owner has been staying inside a lot more these days. She used to leave our apartment every day for work, but now she never leaves, and she sits at home looking at computers instead. I'm happy I get to be with her more, but I think something's wrong, and that's making me feel scared. I'm going to pay closer attention to her actions and the way she smells. I know what a tree is, but I don't know the other parts of your name. Is that your breed? I never talked with a tree before. Do you have an owner, too? When I look over at your apartment across the alley, I can see a man through the windows. Who's he? By the way, my name is Jack. I'm not any special kind of breed of dog, just some mix of retriever and shepherd. Your new pal, Jack. My dear Jack, I was positively elated upon receiving your reply. Would that I could do so much as send you the smallest salutation from my window to your balcony. Alas, I don't possess such faculties. Were the proximity different, I'm sure you'd not mistake it, but I am special in that I'm not a regular tree, at least not the type you may be familiar with. No, I'm merely an artificial replica of a certain kind of tree, which itself is a miniature version. I'm made from a material called plastic. I suspect that bone you go chewing after dinner is made of the same material. The certain tree I am is modeled after a juniper tree. I'm most curious to know what that type of tree might smell like, as again, I lack the faculties for that sense. If you happen to know and could describe it for me, I'd simply be over the moon. The man you've seen cavort about the apartment is indeed technically my owner, although I like to think our relationship wouldn't be categorized in such Marxist terms. His name is Dr. Ferguson. I consider us more like roommates. Sometimes he speaks to me in such a way that suggests this, so I take it as a fair bet that he thinks that. He'll say things to me like, "We've got to take out the trash this morning, huh?" Or, "Looks like rain, doesn't it?" Incidentally, Dr. Ferguson's routines have also undergone a certain tweaking in recent days. While the life of a doctor certainly demands a degree of devotion to an ever-changing schedule, these days have seen him barely arrive home before he rushes through some mundane activity like showering, eating, or laundry before he's out the door again right away. I dare say work is infringing upon his psyche. Usually he has a sister over once every few weeks, but she's been noticeably absent. He even wears his surgical mask while leaving the apartment nowadays. After your last missive, I've been keeping a closer eye on your balcony and the window, which allows me glimpses of your place. Indeed, I've noticed something of a bleak disposition trailing behind the human you live with, like a specter plaguing the anxious hero of a Poe story. Have you any more news on the reason behind this sudden slide into such gloom? Yours, ever in good faith, the plastic bonsai tree in apartment 232. Dear Mr. Tree, so your owner's a doctor. He's not a vet, is he? The vet my owners take me to see always manhandles me, and the other dogs and cats in the waiting room say he does the same thing to them. But I bet your owner's a good kind of doctor, because he seems like a good person, and he owns you, and you're nice, so I think he's a good kind of doctor. I'm sorry I didn't get outside very much this week to look over at you. I didn't know what a mask was when I read your letter, but now my owner has also started wearing one. But I know she isn't a doctor or a vet. I heard her call it a mask while on the phone. It makes my owner look funny, and sometimes I get scared, like she might not be herself. She's acting more weird than normal. She talks on the phone all the time, and sometimes she cries on the phone, or after she hangs up. She used to leave and go places all the time, but not at all these days. Usually I can help my owner feel good, but nowadays, no matter what I do, it doesn't do anything. She doesn't want to take me outside anymore, and although I don't mind, I'm scared of getting sick and having to go to the vet. Since you're so smart, I was wondering if you could help me understand what makes her sad, and maybe help me come up with a way to help. Do you do anything when your owner gets sad? About your request, I may know what a juniper tree smells like, but I don't know the names of trees. I wish I could use a dictionary, but I can't. Can you tell me what a juniper tree looks like? Usually trees have a pretty good smell. It's just when other dogs get their smell on them that ruins it. Your pal, Jack. Dearest Jack, I'm sorry to hear the kind folks you live with seem to be having a tougher time. I gather from your demeanor that besides the decrease in time spent outside with opportunity to do your business, and the obvious emotional repercussions of people you love being in pain, that you yourself are doing fine. If I was a real bonsai tree, I would also have to worry about being healthy and growing in a way that befits my further survival. Alas, I'm made of plastic, so those are not among the concerns I count as my own. As such, I can't offer any sound advice to you about helping your owners. What I can say is that humans benefit from speaking about what they're feeling and often feel the need to have a listener. I can't do much for Dr. Ferguson, who practices medicine for humans, not animals, so worry not. But one thing I do consider a skill of mine is listening, for he makes it a habit to talk to me. Perhaps you can make that your focus. This concept of making our owners happier is something that I think about a lot, especially as Dr. Ferguson spends more and more time at the hospital. The moments he's at home are tense and at times punctuated by sporadic coughing fits. I admit I feel guilty for seemingly being on the outside of so much of what is important in the life of the living. That's why I'm so intent on finding out what a juniper tree might smell like. I fear a description wouldn't help you any, but if you could manage, could you find a book that might have a picture? From that, possibly you'd be able to know whether or not it's a smell you've encountered. I don't know why, but if I knew what a real version of me smelled like, maybe, somehow, I could start to understand what makes Dr. Ferguson work so hard. As always, all the best to you and yours, my good man. Ever your friend, the plastic bonsai tree in apartment 232. Dear plastic bonsai tree, I'll keep my eyes peeled for tree names, but I did hear the word plastic after listening to my owner. My owner has a machine that makes things out of plastic. The machine's loud and it's kind of scary, and it sits next to her computer. But knowing that, I now know for sure what plastic smells like. And it's not like a tree. Yesterday, when I was lying with my head on my owner's lap, she started crying and telling me something about her father needing to stay at the people vet. I wanted to jump up and play fetch with her right away to make her feel better. But I thought about what you wrote to me, and so instead I didn't move. I just listened. I didn't know who she meant until she reminded me he was the one who gave me turkey at Thanksgiving. Whenever I smell turkey, I think of him, so that's why it made sense. Apparently, he's very sick, and there's a chance he might not get to come back from the vet. That would be sad, I knew, because those were the words my owner said the slowest and the quietest. Usually, it's so easy for her to talk to me, but she seemed to be hurting. At least that's what I thought. I don't know what I should do. I just hope things turn out all right for Turkey Man, because I know how scary it can be when I'm at the vet all alone without my family. Sometimes when I'm in that room at the vet with the steel table, I wonder if it will be the last place I ever might see. Sorry for being a downer. Sincerely, Jack. Dearest Jack, make no apologies for speaking your mind, dear boy, especially in these trying times. It may be silly of me to say, but in fact, I envy you. I envy you your family. I envy you your happiness. I even envy you your sadness, your fear. I, being an organic, can't say I could imagine what the end might feel like for me. Time seems to move differently when you're not growing, when you're not constantly producing cells and wiping them away. Dr. Ferguson hasn't returned to the apartment for about a week now. There may have been times in the past he's been gone that long, but usually he saw fit to at least make some sort of joke about not needing to water me while he's on vacation. Rarely, it seems, does he disappear for this long, but I take heart that he will be back. He didn't take along many of the things he takes when going on excursions. I stare across the alley into your apartment every day, Jack, and I think about what could happen. Perhaps there's a possible future, I think to myself, wherein your family, Turkey Man and all, and my family, Dr. Ferguson, are able to be together and happy at the same time, in the same room. Perhaps then you'd be able to tell me whether I do smell like plastic. After watching you with your owner and corresponding with you, I want even more to understand what a juniper tree smells like. Perhaps I could learn how to emit the odor. It might be a soothing thing for Dr. Ferguson to return to when he does return. Sort of my way of saying, welcome home. All the best, the plastic bonsai tree in apartment 232. Dear Mr. Tree, you'll never guess what happened. It was just a normal morning like any other. I'd found a particularly warm spot of sun near the sliding door to the balcony. You might see me lying there sometimes. When my owner all of a sudden leapt up from her computer chair. The chair crashed over and the plastic printing machine got knocked off, and it scared the heck out of me. I looked at my owner. She was speaking on the phone, and her voice seemed hurried, like after she runs a while to catch up to me and pants like mad. She listened to the phone, and after a moment, she sunk to her knees and began crying. But this wasn't like the crying from before, when I could smell her unhappiness. This was different. It was a happy sort of crying. I couldn't quite understand all of it, but from what I could tell, I think the Turkey Man is going to be okay. He's going to be able to come back from the human vet. She said he'd come for a visit outside in the alley. And so you could see him too. This was good news, I knew, because my owner didn't look at her computer anymore for the rest of the day. And she hugged me, and I licked her face and her hands, and I brought my toys over to her, and she laughed, and she cried all night, like it was an easy thing to do again. I'm not smart like you are, Mr. Tree, but I have to thank you for helping me help my owner. Even though I'm still not getting to go out on long walks, she doesn't seem as nervous as she did before. Your pal, Jack. Dear Jack, I cannot overstate my joy upon receiving the news about your owner's father, Turkey Man. These days, receiving any sort of news has become somewhat of a luxury for me, as Dr. Ferguson still hasn't returned to the apartment. I must admit, in his absence, I find my attention waning at certain points in the day, as if long periods of time disappear in the length of time it would take you to go from sitting to standing. I look down at the alley and I try to recognize any of the folks that traverse it, but aside from you and your owner, the people look less and less familiar to me. I expect the silence, the stillness is getting to me a bit. It was a few days after receiving your good news that I was able to witness your owner's scene of reunion in the alley below. I apologize for looking in on the proceedings, but I couldn't help myself. Had I a heart, I know it would have been a flutter seeing your owner, her voice failing, wiping tears from her eyes, able to speak to her father from the balcony. And it gave me such a surge of pride to think that you and I may have been able to share something of the sort in our own distance correspondence. I wondered, albeit briefly, while you were out on the balcony with her, if maybe you were looking over at me at all. Again, my wholehearted congratulations to you and your family. All the best. The plastic bonsai tree in apartment 232. Dear Mr. Tree, I know it's taken a little longer for me to reply. I'm sorry. I hope this gets to you. Yesterday, I saw the sad woman come into your apartment. At first, I thought Dr. Ferguson had finally come home since she looked like him, even with her mask on, and I was happy you got your family back. But I could see after a few minutes it wasn't her. I watched her walk around the apartment and she looked like my owner back when my owner was sad and I couldn't make her happy. I saw her put on gloves and touch certain things. I saw her stop at the window and stare at you. This was when my owner came into the room with her cell phone. I didn't understand the way she was standing, the way she smelled the things her eyes or nose or mouth were doing. I think maybe you would have, because you are smart. But it was all too complicated for me. Anyway, she took her cell phone, she pushed buttons on it and waited for it to make a noise. I turned back to your apartment and I saw the sad woman in your apartment quickly put you down, reach into her pocket and answer her cell phone. My owner, she cried on the phone, and I think the woman in your apartment cried too, although I couldn't quite see with the glare from the sun being strong. My owner said thank you many times and apologized over and over too. She kept telling the woman her brother was a good person. She was trying to listen closely to my owner, just in case I was trying to listen closely to my owner, just in case she mentioned anything about what a juniper tree smells like. I had the feeling that's what they were talking about. I don't know if they really were talking to each other, but I think they were, because when my owner stopped talking on the phone, it looked like the sad woman in your apartment did too. I watched the woman pick you up again, and I saw her say something to you, kind of like how Dr. Ferguson used to. Then I thought maybe she looked over and saw me through the screen door, staring across the alley at her. After a moment, she turned and took you somewhere away from the window, somewhere I can't see. And then my owner needed me, so I had to go be with her. And later that night, she started making something from plastic in the loud machine, and it looked kind of like a little tree. Are you planning a visit? Mr. Tree, I hope these days you are able to be happy. I'm still trying to figure out what a juniper tree is, but in the meantime, I noticed a page in a book that was open in my home, and it had something about trees. I couldn't quite understand it, but I carefully chewed the page off to send to you. Maybe it says what a juniper tree smells like. I've included it here. Sorry if it's slobbery. Your pal, Jack. The Trees by Philip Larkin. The trees are coming into leaf like something almost being said. The recent buds relax and spread. Their greenness is a kind of grief. Is it that they are born again and we grow old? No, they die too. Their yearly trick of looking new is written down in rings of grain. Yet still the unresting castles thresh in full-grown thickness every May. Last year is dead, they seem to say. Begin afresh, afresh, afresh. Thank you very much.
All right, that was awesome. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm really glad that I don't have friends that chew off pages and send them to me, though. That doesn't sound like pandemic safe behavior.
A poem by Philip Larkin.
It has slobber. No poetry with slobber. No. All right. So let's see. But thank you. That was very, very sweet. And so next we have Richard. So hi, Richard. How are you doing?
Hi. I'm doing fine. Some good stories.
Yeah. So yeah, what have you got for us tonight?
Well, I have the first chapter of a space opera novella that is out. I don't have a physical copy of it. This is the prior one.
All right. Awesome.
that, well, this one starts just a little bit after that one ends, and it's kind of about the achievements the main character has in this one, a little bit. And it's a female first-person narrator, so it's probably going to be a little weird with my, bass voice. But there you go.
Well, that's okay. That's part of what keeps it fun, right?
Yeah. And it's a bit of a change of pace from these last couple, so we'll hopefully be... It's a space opera. It's upbeat. What can you say? At least a little bit.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I'll let you.
Okay. Here we go. The story, by the way, is called Ensign's Renown, and chapter 1 is Happy Birthday. I sat, eyes closed and alone in my bedroom in my mom's apartment, remembering how it had felt to fly a starship, the mistakes I'd made, and the crash landing. Here, with a security net and privacy web that kept reporters and hackers away, I would be left in peace. I played it all again in my mind. My hands moved on imaginary joysticks, feet pressed non-existent pedals. I could have avoided that damn asteroid, that damn rock spur. I could have. All I had to do was, without opening my eyes, I didn't want to break the image. I fumbled for the tumbler on the bedside table. When I found it, I brought it to my lips and sipped at the whiskey. I felt it in my bones, the DFS finder coming apart around me, the reactor dying, making the gravity drive buck like an untamed horse, the nav computer down, the virtual vision broken, sparks and fires on the bridge, damage control chattering in my ears, all because I'd caromed off an asteroid. That damned asteroid had been the coup de grace, even if it had taken the finder hours longer to die. My home in the stars destroyed, and I'd had the con. I threw the glass across the room. The tumbler bounced, splattering a finger of double malt onto my feet and the carpet floor. Sighing, I gave up and opened my eyes. The walls of my bedroom cycled through starship posters and photos of old friends. Sports trophies sat on the dresser. The clothes I used to wear hung in a closet. A girl's room. In the 9 years that had passed on Thurman without me, all my friends had grown and started new lives, spouses, children, jobs. Even my mom had a new life since my father had died. Drunk, I cringed at the remnants of my childhood. I retrieved the tumbler from the floor and headed to the kitchen to get more whiskey. It was technically my birthday after all. At least it was the right date. By my internal biological reckoning, I was only 17 years, 10 months old. But according to the calendars on Thurman, 9 years had passed. The time debt from a long flight at relativistic speeds had really screwed up everyone's dates, but I was determined to celebrate, either 2 months early or 9 years late. Except celebrate wasn't quite the word. My first love, John, had been electrocuted in his seat on the bridge when I hit that asteroid. Since then, I had only been allowed to fly shuttles to and from Memnon Station about once a week, always with a senior pilot watching over my shoulder. No one gave me a reason why I wasn't given a real assignment, an explanation, a clue, nothing. My former crew members on the Finder, Rachel, Waleed, and Harold, resided out in space, flying asteroid mining runs and leaving me alone with my sullen mom. I'd fought 2 alien attackers that humans had never seen before. I'd named them Star Sharks. I'd landed a disabled and dying ship. I'd saved the crew multiple times. I'd even taught Rachel how to fly combat before she'd taken on the first of the 3 Star Sharks. But I couldn't get my own apartment because I had not been 18 until today. Not having a job left me to wallow in my disaster of a life. My dad had died 5 years earlier. I'd been far out in space, way out of communication range. He'd gone in for an experimental treatment to fix the issues with his... Mom had done her grieving already. She had removed all trace of Dad from the apartment except a few photos mixed into the wall displays, along with the fine art and scenery from around the planet, Thurman. She had little patience for my weeping over Dad or John. She wanted the happy, cocky pilot daughter who had gone to space and got me back instead. My mom was caught in the edges of the press hounding me too. They tried to get to me through her, asking about my childhood, the academy, the flight, the Star Shark fights, and more. None of them ever asked what I was supposed to do next, why a hero had no job offers, how soul-shattering it was to be at the controls as the love of your life dies, and then, to add insult to injury, to learn of the death of your dad. They never asked. I poured myself another 2 fingers of whiskey and took a sip. I miss you, Daddy. Someone knocked on the apartment door. I sighed, figuring on more reporters, although it took enterprising ones to get past the building security to reach that door. I pulled out my data pad to check the security camera. Outside stood Dr. Liu Qi, the theoretical physicist who'd been on the Finder. My eyes widened and I ran out of my room, whiskey tumbler still in hand, and dashed to the front door, yanking it open. I frowned. Lou, what are you doing here? I sounded sullen even to my own ears. He took in my sweats and greasy hair, but kept his face neutral. I came to wish you happy birthday. He'd remembered. No one else had come. They probably had jobs. It was so good to see a friendly face, but it didn't change anything. He had a crush on me, maybe because on the Finder, Rachel had been uninterested in anyone, Amanda in everyone, and Zoya in Amanda, leaving me. Or perhaps it was because I'd been as obsessed with flying as he was with physics. I didn't want to encourage him. What's happy about it? What good is being an adult? He folded his arms and leaned on the doorframe, trying not to grin. Get cleaned up. I'm taking you to dinner. Had he just asked me out? A sharp denial formed on my tongue. Without warning, Mom appeared at the door, behind Lou, gray hair and a tight bun, as tight as her expression. Her glance took in Lou, me, and the whiskey tumbler. She scowled. What a dilemma. Not going with Lou would mean staying here alone, another tense and silent evening with my mom. I didn't want to encourage him, but, Mom, meet Dr. Lou. Dr. Lou, my answer is yes. Mom offered a fake smile. Pleased to meet you. Won't you come in? She said it as if I'd been remiss in not inviting him inside. I'll get dressed, I said, hopefully, before I got too uncomfortable with Mom. I spun and dashed for the bathroom, feeling like a bird who just found the cage door open. I could escape from my mom, from my failures, from memories of Dad and John, even if it was just for an evening. Crush or no crush, I was grateful to Lou for opening the cage door. I cranked the shower up as hot as I could stand it, stripped and stepped in. The water pounded at the shell of sadness and apathy on my skin with little effect. Soaping in a hurry and conserving water as if I were still on the Finder, I washed, dried, and slipped into my room to find something to wear. The closet, however, held no civilian clothes, only my ship coveralls. I had one Thurman Defense Force uniform that they'd given me for press conferences. I put that on, tucked my hair up under my hat, and donned my new wraparound shades. The pay I'd gotten upon returning with the Finder, 2.5 years worth of hazard pay, had gone into savings, except for my glasses. They had automatic light enhancers, night vision, computer connections, and most importantly, a backlight hologram that subtly changed the tones and shape of my face. A disguise. I'd bought them the day before my very first press conference. I was sweating and nervous, hyperventilating just thinking about it. I had to do something, so I went shopping on my computer. Searching for disguises didn't find me much, but the tech gadget store distracted me. I found the glasses there. Wearing the shades with my hair up under my hat made me feel like I was hiding in plain sight. When I walked out of the shower, the house computer had made the walls warmer and the lights softer, and played soothing music in the background. Mom and Lou sat in the living room. Mom was quizzing Lou about the Finder. What was it like living in such tight quarters? Lou grinned. There weren't many secrets. Mom frowned. Are you married? No, ma'am. Too busy with mathematics. Rolling my eyes behind my shades where neither could see, I walked to the door before looking over at Lou. Ready? Lou raised an eyebrow as he rose. You look like you do in your interviews with that uniform on. Mom gave me a little wave. You two behave now. Mom! The door looked like an escape hatch. My body yearned for the hallway, muscles tensing as if for a race. I walked out in the corridor, not waiting for Mom or to see if Lou followed. The whiskey was coursing through my veins, and I still limped due to a hip injury I'd gotten from Rachel's fight with the first star shark. I couldn't have been an attractive sight. I had no idea why Lou was still crushing on me so much. There had to be smarter women available. The computer at the 8th floor exit door recognized me and summoned a car from the city transportation grid. Back when I'd left with the finder, we'd had to descend an elevator to wait outside for the transportation to arrive. Things had changed. The light on the door changed to green as the car clicked into the dock in the building, and the building and car doors opened as one. With the door on the front, I climbed in and turned to sit. Lou jogged up behind me and climbed in beside me. The door closed. Across the front, below the window, there was a padded cover with the interior's forest green fabric to protect our knees in case of a non-existent accident. The windows could display shows or news if you wanted, and there was a little space behind the seats for shopping bags or suitcases. The car had no manual controls. I wanted joysticks. Madame Fez, Lou said to the navigation system. The car disconnected from the apartment. The sun was sinking below the horizon to the west, but there was enough light to see the ring of apartment buildings surrounding the parkland and school. 5 drones circled over my building, waiting for me to come out. Very few vehicles traveled above ground in the city. We descended 8 stories to the ground and then down into the tunnels. Once underground, we moved through lighted tunnels where electric murals played along the walls. 2 cars made a space for us among a train of 8 cars, and we glided into place and clicked into the fore and aft cars. I considered asking what a Madame Fez might be. It sounded like a hat. I've missed you, Lou said, watching my face or something. I've missed... I couldn't finish that sentence. I'd missed all of it, all of them. Hell, I even missed Mr. Bellows, the loud, harsh control and training officer, a total ass, but a really good damage control officer. I even missed the long, stupid, boring bridge shifts, which I would take over press conferences and a silent, bitter apartment. Lou shifted in his seat, clothes rustling. I know, normal life seems kind of boring, although we thought the same about the finder until we didn't. Then again, what we're doing now, 4 cars in the train, including ours, took a right turn, forming our own little train on a side tunnel. It read, Jehozen Neighborhood. Lou didn't finish his thought. He was probably working with scientists on his gravity theories. Radical stuff, but we'd already proven it true on the finder. I rolled down the window to feel the air in my face, wishing I could see the sky. No, I wanted to fly through the sky and out into the deep dark. Without intending it, I moved my hand on an imaginary joystick, trying to fly the car into orbit. Oh dear, Lou grabbed my hand. Is it that bad? What? I looked at my hand, feeling the warmth of his touch. Rachel had been the last to hold my hand right after John had died. I jerked my hand out of his grasp. Oh, I just need to fly. Lou worked his jaw, trying to get past my slight. I may have something. Have what? The fore and aft cars clicked free, and our car separated from the train. We slowed and stopped in a vertical shaft. Going straight up, the car pushed through an iris door, then floated over to a concrete parking slab. Here, other cars waited beside a little shopping district. People strolled beneath lights. A musician had set up at the far end. A digital wall for one shop showed 100 different kinds of pasta. Noodles advertising that all the noodles were printed in the store. The one next to it offered zero-G gymnastics training for all ages 1 to 100. When we got out of the car, Thurman's 2 moons shone down on us. People strode on the walkways, to and from the stores and the parks beyond. Native trees with purple leaves and branches all growing straight out rather than up provided a nice canopy to walk under. A cool breeze blew in my face. It felt nice until I sneezed. Pollen in the autumn air. Lou produced a handkerchief with a flourish. When I wasn't depressed and miserable, I rather liked Lou. I decided I should be nicer. I waved toward the shopping area. What is this restaurant anyway? Lou chuckled as he led me off to the left. It's one of those new cultural things from Earth. Given his heritage, I asked, Chinese? He laughed even harder. Chinese food? Not me. I'd forgotten that he tried not to acknowledge his heritage. That's why we called him Lou rather than his given name, Kishi. Around the corner lay a restaurant with white keyhole arches over doors and windows and geometric patterns all over the walls. The aroma of unfamiliar spices wafted on the breeze. My stomach rumbled. Had I eaten anything since yesterday? Inside, the decor was gold and red paint, beads and curtains, and music played on some stringed instrument with a long neck and a round body that I'd never seen before. Most of the dozen low tables had people at them, eating. They seemed to be using their hands a lot. Lou told the hostess he had a reservation, and she led us into the main area, which had low tables and no chairs, just cushions. Off to the right, a woman in a jangly gold halter top danced openly between the tables. She had armbands and a filmy cobalt scarf draping her legs, like wearing underwear in public. And she wanted people to watch. If I was dressed like that, I would have been hiding in my room. I shoved Lou. A belly dancer? Looking embarrassed, he shrugged. It's traditional. As the hostess showed us a small table and handed us menus, I took another glance at the dancer. Before copying Lou and half lying on the cushions. Then I noticed the table held no silverware of any kind. What? It's traditional and different. We're reclining at table. They have water to wash your hands. Choose, Lou tapped the menu. I ordered a Cornish game hen with apricots, honey, and almonds, and wine to go with it. Lou got grilled beef and brochette. First, however, the waiter brought us soup, but no spoons. Lou picked up the bowl and sipped, his eyes sparkling as he looked over the bowl's rim at me. I imitated him, but avoided looking at him. Instead, I checked out the dancer as she came closer. Her sinuous movements made her costume jingle, and patrons watch her. I wished I could be so comfortable. Could I do what she was doing? Before I could think about it, I got up and limped around 3 tables to the dancer, getting puzzled looks from those reclining. Being half drunk didn't slow me down. I raised a hand to tap on her shoulder or something, but with everyone watching, didn't. Show me how you do that. Startled, the dancer half jumped, sending her bracelets jingling. She smiled. She paused to look around, judging her audience. Sure, but it takes a lot of work. Oh, I was interrupting her work, but she'd said yes. Did that mean she thought she could make more by teaching me? Damn, she recognized me. But I was in uniform, so my identity wasn't that hard to guess. I pursed my lips. Give me a chance. Shrugging, she raised her hands straight up with arms bent so they almost touched over her head. Like this, Miss Clark. I took a furtive glance around the room and found everyone looking at me. Double damn. I was just drunk enough to dance anyway. The dancer shook her hips and moved her feet while I watched and imitated. My hip joint hitched a little. I wasn't very good, and a dress uniform was not made for dancing. The movement was still sexy, and I wanted to do it for John. Then I felt bad, missing John and feeling like I shouldn't be thinking about John while with Lou. Lou was staring at me as if he'd never seen a woman before. Laughing at him and myself, I waved my arms over my head and clumsily tried to wiggle my hips. When the waiter brought the appetizer course to Lou, I gave up my dancing career. I thanked and tipped the dancer. The restaurant cheered. Sweat trickled on my brow as my stage fright reared its head. I beat a hasty retreat back to the table. I was tipsy, which let me concentrate on the food and Lou, ignoring the other diners. There was salad, bread, and mint tea in front of me. Lou just stared, which didn't help. I downed the wine in one gulp. When the waiter brought a second glass, Lou caught my hand before I could choose between sipping and quaffing. "Brandy, I want to apologize." That got my attention, and I put the wine down. "Wait, what?" "I asked them to include you from the beginning of this thing, but they wouldn't." This thing? From Lou, that could only mean one thing. They were trying to recreate the astonishing faster-than-light homeward leg when I'd hitched a ride with a star shark into that weird space. Lou had predicted it and created all the formulas before we'd even left. Now they were trying to do it a second time, although apparently without me. I still lowered my voice. "You're trying to repeat what we did. Damn them. They sent me on a combat mission at 15, but I can't help them get back to weird space until I'm 18? Morons." Lou snorted. "I told them. I've been asking for you at least once a week." My heart warmed toward him. He wanted me there, helping. Wait, what could I do except fly the ship once it was done? Why me? What can I do? "And where are you doing this?" Lou frowned, eyes more withdrawn and less sharp than usual. "They built a base on Alante Moon. Our group hasn't gotten very far yet. The physicists are all old school and no one is even talking to the engineers. You have a way of cutting through the crap." I glanced at the ceiling as if I could see Alante, the larger of Thurman's two moons, through the restaurant's roof. Nothing much happened there. Keith's moon had a big mining operation, but not Alante. Great place for a secret base. "How soon can we go?" Lou blinked and laughed. "In the morning." I picked up some chicken and bit into it. I didn't want to wait until morning. "We'll go get my stuff when we're done, and I'll stay with you tonight to make things quicker tomorrow." Lou stared at me, mouth open. Then he smiled in delight, a smile that morphed into a frown, and at last sighed, disappointed. "That will be fine." Oh, hell. He still had a crush on me, and I just volunteered to sleep at his house. I hadn't thought this thing through. We'd spent a couple of years in close proximity on the Finder. His quarters had been right next to mine. I'd taken for granted that things were the same. They weren't. A memory of John's laugh with his golden eyes dancing hit me like a star shark shrapnel. I closed my eyes and tried to breathe, but my lungs didn't want to work. Fumbling, I grabbed the wine glass and tried to drink. I ended up choking and coughing instead. Lou slapped my back. By the time I recovered, John's image had faded, though he hovered close by, threatening to overwhelm me. If only I'd flown better. My hands returned to the joysticks, and I remembered the moves, shutting down the engines and frantically trying to start them again before we hit the asteroid. Lou cocked his head and touched my hand again. "Brandy, eat." "What?" "Oh." I dug into the food with my hands, letting the mechanical movements and savory spices distract me and push John away. Except I wanted John alive and with me. I took another bite, almonds and apricots, to avoid getting lost in thought. Lou glanced at the dancer, then tried to school his face to neutral, but he couldn't help grinning. "Your belly dancing was good, for a first time." I looked over at the dancer and grinned. I'd rather enjoyed dancing, although I'd been downright awful no matter what Lou said. We finished our main course, followed by dessert and coffee. When we rose to leave, half a dozen patrons waited near the door watching us, wanting autographs. Some of them even wanted Lou's. I pasted on a smile, signed whatever they offered, and let them take pictures. Outside, though, was worse. Half a dozen reporters waited. They pounced as soon as they saw me, all the same questions. What did it feel like to land the Finder? What's it like being a hero? One of them added, "Are you two an item?" What? I stopped rather than walking by as I intended. He's too old for me. He's like a big brother. Get a clue. One of them, with a sly grin, added, "Did you enjoy belly dancing?" Perhaps a few reporters had brains. He got me to chuckle. I did. Perhaps I'll take it up as a profession. I walked on. Lou trailed behind me, a frown on his face when I looked over my shoulder. We got in the car. He didn't say anything, his face blank. Had I said something wrong? Oh, too old. Oops. I touched his shoulder. Lou, that was for the reporters. The hollow ache in my chest threatened to overwhelm me again. Exactly how old are you? He laughed. For the reporters, huh? I'm just 23, which is why those other astrophysicists won't listen to me. 5 years older than me. That seemed like a lot, or not very much. I didn't know. Lou, I'm not right now. Just try to keep me sane tonight, okay? The car hadn't moved since no one had given her destination. Lou took a deep breath. Do you really need to get things from your mom's place? Did I? Socks, underwear, a couple pair of coveralls? No, let's go to your place. You do have a couch, right? Lou laughed and hit the navigation button. Destination home. As the car lifted off the ground and moved into traffic, I got out my pad and found a place that would deliver socks and underwear. Then I got on the Planetary Defense Force site and requisitioned some jumpsuits. Last, I sent a message to my mother. Hi, Mom. Lou offered me a job working on some test flights on Alante Moon. I'll let you know when I'll be back. Sorry. A more inadequate letter no one has ever written, but I had a job that would let me fly. That's the end of chapter 1.
All right, cool. So let's see. Yeah, so like, is this going to be just a 2-parter thing, or
Actually,
are you doing multiple books?
6.
I mean,
6 novellas.
6. Oh, wow.
6 novellas. The first 3 are about Brandy, and the second 3 about technically her sister, Burgundy. Although that's a little weird. We couldn't be, any fun if it wasn't a little weird. It's a space opera, right? And so, yeah, this one, Ensign's Renown, is out. The third one, Ace's Anguish, which is the last Brandy story, is in editing. Should be out, well, I was hoping, before the end of April. Let's put it that way, before the end of April.
All right.
So, and books 4 and 5 have been written, first draft. Book 6 is about, I don't know, depends how long it's going to end up, which I don't know, maybe a quarter of the way through. So I'm quite a bit ahead of where the publishing is.
Awesome. All right. Well, I guess I will go ahead and bring everybody else on here. I'm so excited that I can have more than 4 people on the screen now. I feel so empowered. Okay.
There you go.
I'm like, ooh, I have a new toy. And so, kind of Brady Brunch-erific, but not too bad. Anyway, let's see. Well, Steve, you started out with your reading. So, I don't know, what are your thoughts on kind of where we are a year later since we started doing this whole thing?
I think I've been really happy with this whole format, and it seems to pick up momentum. So it's I'm hoping that you keep this going forever. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, well, I can't promise forever because, there could be zombies and something might come along and eat me. But, I have decided I'm not going to die, though. I'm doing the Ted Baxter approach to things. And so if I get sick, I'm just going to get frozen. And then when they figure out, what made me sick, they can just unfreeze me. And so that'll be fine.
We need to go up to Netherlands sometime for Frozen Dead Guy days.
There you go.
I know. I totally do. So let's see. So KB, you had, so I'm so confused now because we've got, someone else who comes on here and who goes by initials too. But, I don't know, you're much prettier than he is, so makes sense. But anyway, like, what would you say? Well, I don't know. You haven't been with us since the very beginning of this, but have you done any other like readings or open mics online or anything since the pandemic started?
I've done the F-bomb. That one's
Oh,
been
cool.
fun. Yeah. So, but this is a different format, and I really liked it. It's really kind of nice and close knit and fun, and I really enjoyed everyone's stories. So it was really fun, and the comments are cool. So it was really fun to watch. Thank you so much. It was an honor to be part of the anniversary show.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm so glad we're still here, you know, in so many ways. But yeah, and I've seen F-bomb before. Are they still doing it on Zoom?
Yeah, they're still
Okay.
going.
All right. Yeah, I just keep losing track of time. I need to like drop in on that more often because I know I watched it one time and it was cool. And, you know, of course, I wasn't brave enough to read anything on there, but, you know, there was some cool stuff on there. It's like, it's all flash fiction. And when do they do it? Is
It's
it the
usually
first?
on a Tuesday. Yeah, I think it's
Okay.
like I can't tell for sure. But if you guys ever want to go back in person, hang out, let's go when we're vaccinated.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm vaccinated. I'm good.
Half facts.
Okay, yeah, the half vax.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's over at the Mercury Cafe. Yeah, so I don't know. I missed the Mercury Cafe. I haven't been there in quite a while, so but that place has a lot of personality. So
Yeah, it's fun.
yeah. So let's see, Tom. So what do you think? Because you have been with us since the very beginning of this show. So
Yeah,
you
I
know,
think, well, I echo what Stephen and KB said, that this is really great. It's really fun to come on every single time. And for sure, well, hopefully you take it as a compliment to say that you have gotten much better at getting everything together, and the broadcast is like, or way more smooth. I remember when we were first doing it, there were things all over the place. We didn't know what was working, but now it's really smooth. You've got the links ready for everyone, and I'm impressed that we've come this far, and I'm happy to be a part of it.
And as a writer, I think it's a lot of fun because I normally write science fiction, and so gives me a chance to write something in a short form that's in other genres too. So that's
and even getting to read it out loud too, which isn't something you probably get to do that often.
No, not very often.
Yeah, and reading stuff out loud is even more convinced me that it was a wise decision to get professional narrators for my other books.
well, yeah, it's kind of funny, like, you know, listening to yourself, you know, read something out loud, or like, you know, hearing any author read their own work out loud, because it's like they have their own you can hear like how they intended to have it read, you know, whereas like when you have a professional narrator, it's like sometimes it doesn't sound quite the way that, you know.
Yeah, you definitely add a little bit extra when you're reading, but then again, professional actors can maybe add something that we can.
True. Voices, not stumbling over words. You know. Although there's some authors like Connie Willis, just fabulous at reading their own stuff. I remember hearing her read Even the Queen. If you haven't read that, you should find it. And she had us all rolling on the floor laughing. It was just crazy. But yeah, so some authors are good at it.
I recently listened to his Dark Materials, and Philip Pullman read that, and seems like he nailed exactly how he wanted to read it, type of thing.
That's cool. I haven't, I have not read that series at all. And it's like people keep, recommending it, and I'm just
same to me. It's always recommended to me. Lee was always trying to get me to read it, and I finally did.
Yeah, that's right. Oh my gosh. It's so weird. Like, so much stuff is so weird. I should really stop saying that because it's like, weird is the new normal. But yeah, we've got April coming up, which is normally the month for Pikes Peak Writers Conference. And I don't know, there's just kind of like, after years of going there, there's kind of like the normal gaggle of people I would see there, and it got canceled last year. This year it's all virtual. So for anyone who's curious, you can register for it right now. It's I believe April 23rd through the 25th, I think.
Yeah.
And yeah, okay. So which I'm kind of looking forward to, since it probably will not be the, multiple night party that it normally has been. So I won't need like a week to recover and, do
We definitely
like.
still get some great keynote speakers, and it's less money because you don't have to pay for food.
Yep.
So there are some great things for it.
Yeah.
So all the vegetables are there, but none of the dessert.
Exactly. Yeah, Deb, our the Pikes Peak Writers president, says virtual will be good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Deb, I apologize for what I just said.
I attended another virtual con, and the panels were really good. Although being on a panel, you couldn't get audience interaction, so there was that missing. But the panels were really good, and they actually had some interesting things because they could get people on panels that they normally wouldn't get. Like there was a guy in Thailand, literally in Thailand while we were doing the panels here, and those were good. The stuff you miss is just being with the people and the social interactions and stuff, and they tried, but that just wasn't the same. So
I think it's going to be great.
Yeah.
The most important part of the conference, right?
That's right.
Well, let's see.
Can I add a creepy story note
Sure.
for what I had? The part where we were talking in the story where he was talking about the prices for various body parts. That actually, there was a case in Montrose, I think it was last year or the year before, where a funeral home there was shut down when they found that they were parting out the bodies prior to cremation. So people were not getting everything that they thought they were getting when they got the ashes. And the price list that I used was the actual price list from a biological supply company that actually is in that as a legit business. And those are real prices.
That's creepy.
Yeah, and now that's in my search history.
Yummy. Oh, yeah. Deb is like ripped from the headline.
Yes.
Yeah. If it involves a funeral home or, crematorium, it's got to be good, right? Like good in the bad way. So, yeah. All righty. Well, I guess if, nothing else is happening, we can kind of close out tonight, and I can go get some solid food in me because I've been eating everything today. I don't know what it is.
Celebrate St. Patrick's Day.
Celebrate St. Patrick's Day in your own way, safely, of course. So, just don't see anyone, don't talk to anyone, don't touch anyone, don't have too much fun. But, yeah. So anyway, thank you all for being here, and I'll see you again soon. I hope, hopefully you'll come back.
Thank you for hosting,
everybody.
Yeah, thank you so much. This was awesome.
Right. Yeah. So thank you so
you.
much. All right. Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Night.
Okay, good night, all. And let's see. Okay, good. Now it's just down to me. So let's see. I got to do the reminders. If you have not subscribed to the channel, please do subscribe. And I guess the one other thing to keep in mind is that our next reading is going to be, we're typically doing these on the third week of the month on Wednesday. So it's going to be April 21st at 7 p.m. And the theme is incorporated. And actually, Deb Courtney will be reading on that particular show. And we've got a few other people too. And I can't remember who they are at the moment because brain. But anyway, more information about that will be posted on our group. If you're not part of our Facebook group, please, go ahead and look for Stories Live on Facebook and you can join the group. So yeah, I think that's it. So happy St. Patty's Day. So glad we're all still here. And I don't know, I know it's probably, this is not the way I think any of us were envisioning celebrating St. Patrick's Day. Either of these years, but we're making it through and that's what matters. So I will see you all next month. All right, have a good night.